विश्वं दर्पण दृश्यमान नगरी तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतम् पश्यन् आत्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोध समये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नमः इदम् श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये दूर्वादलत्युतितनुं तरुणाब्जनेत्रम् हेमाम्बरं वरविभूषणभूषिताङ्गम् गन्धर्वकोटिकमनीयकिशोरमूर्तिम् पूर्तिं मनोरथभुवां भज जानकीशम्. All right. So let me just share my screen. Yeah. I think last time we had done till Dohā Chaupai block number 29, right?
Can't remember.
Yeah, 29. So we begin with Dohā Chaupai block number 13. So today we are going to unfold, or rather Goswamiji is going to unfold how the Katha came to be, who told the Katha to whom, and things like that. So a lot of things happening today. Very beautiful verses, dense with metaphors, similes, comparisons, and we'll just see how much we can unfold of that. Okay. So Dohā Chaupai block number 30. Just in case we have forgotten, when I say block number 30, I mean the Doha at 30 and all the Chaupais before that and after the earlier Doha block. So that's Doha Chaupai block 30. जागबलिक जो कथा सुहाई भरद्वाज मुनि बरहि सुनाई कहि हूँ सोई संवाद बखानी सुनहु सकल सज्जन सुखुमानी शंभु कीन्ह यह चरित सुहावा बहुरी कृपा करी उमहि सुनावा सोई शिव काग भुसुंडी दीन्हा राम भगति अधिकारी चीन्हा तेहि सन जाग बलिक पुनि पावा तिन्ह पुनि भरद्वाज प्रतिगावा ते श्रोता बकता समशीला समदरसी जानहि हरि लीला जानहि तीनि काल निज ज्ञाना करतल गत आमलक समाना और जे हरि भगत सुजाना कहि सुनहि समुझहि विधि नाना मैं पुनि निज गुर सन सुनी कथा सो सुकर खेत समुझी नहीं तसी बालपन तब अति रहे अचेत श्रोता बकता ज्ञान निधि कथा राम कै गूढ़ किमि समुझाऊं मैं जीव जड़ कलिमल ग्रसित विमूढ़. Okay. So far we've seen the Vandana, we have seen the importance of the Katha, the importance of Naam. And now he tells us how he came to know of the Katha. So it's the historical background or the context of how Goswamiji came to know of the Katha. So he says that this Katha was told by Jag Balik. Now Jag Balik is no one other than Rishi Yajnavalkya. So again, we have seen this with Shatrughna, Ripusudan. We have seen this with Hiranyakashipu, in which I think he has called him Kanakakasipu or something like that. And now we see that with Yajnavalkya, which is difficult to say. So he converts that it was soft. The Yakya becomes Jag and Valkya becomes Balik. So Yag Balik is the great Rishi Yajnavalkya. He's a Vedic Rishi. It's kind of funny with Yajnavalkya that he told the Ram Katha to Raja Janak, who is Sitaji's father, the whole story of the Ramayana, even before they got married, even before Ram and Sita got married. So that this is going to happen, that is going to happen, Vanvas hoga, Ram. Everything was told to Janak ji before they got married. Now, how did this happen? That explanation of how this happened will come as we move ahead with this whole who told the story to whom and when. So the who, what, when, why, how, all these objective questions suddenly start dissolving into that infinite pulsating divinity that is omnipresent, all pervading. So our objectivity of analysis needs to dissolve into just being. The becoming needs to, it need not stop. It just needs to take a pause or go in the background. But what we need to realize is that we are the being and the becoming, Anyhow, so Jagabali ka jo katha suhai, Bharadvaja Muni barahi sunai. So Jagyabalkya told this story to Bharadvaj. Where did he tell this story? This story was told at Prayagraj. So we know that, obviously last year we had the Kumbh Mela, but every year in the month of Magh, saints from all directions of the country gather at Prayagraj or Allahabad at the Sangam. And at the Sangam, they sit and have bhajananand, they recite bhajans, they tell stories, they tell kathas. And it is at this occasion, in one of the many Magh Melas that have happened over the eons, that the great Rishi Yajnavalkya told the story to another great Rishi, Bharadvaj. So that's one axis of the story. Kahi hum soi sambad bakhani sunahu sakala sajjana sukumani. So now Goswami ji is saying that I am now going to tell you the same story that Yajnavalkya told Bharadvaj. So the story that we have been listening to so far was in the voice of Goswami ji. Now he's telling that I'm not the only person who's been telling this story, and whatever story I am going to tell you or have been telling you is the same story that was told by Yajnavalkya ji to Bharadvaj Muni. Is this the only axis of the storytelling? Obviously not. Sambhu kinha yaha charita suhava. So he says that I am not the maker of this story. I'm just, the propagator. I'm the transmission line. It was not generated by me. So he does not own the authorship. He does not own the story. He says that I am regurgitating the same story that was told by Yajnavalkya to Bharadvaj. And Sambhu kinha yaha charita suhava. So Yajnavalkya told the story, but he is also not the generator, the producer, the author of the story. The authorship is with the great Shiva. Sambhu kinha yaha charita subhava. He did it, he prepared it, he produced it. So the Ramayana Katha was written, produced, created by none other than Shiva. Remember that he's again bringing together Shiva and Vishnu by saying the grand story of Vishnu was authored by Shiva. We are just the transmission lines. We are just telling that and regurgitating and echoing the same story that was first echoed by Shiva. Pahuri Krupakari Umahi Sunava. And who was the Shrota? It was Uma. It was Parvati ji. So what a wonderful scene. They sitting in the beautiful peaks of Mount Kailasa, surrounded by the Mansarovar, with little Kāṇḍa probably on the lap of Parvati ji, with Ganesha, hovering here and there. They weaving that mala of Naramunda. We had seen that painting, right? In which there's a funeral pyre, there are the dogs, and Shivji is very calmly weaving the mala of human skeletons, of skulls. And while he's doing that in that pastime with his family, he's telling the katha to Uma. So Shivji first produced this katha for their Swanta Sukhaya, and Bahuri Krupakari Umahi Sunava. And he told this story to his wife with immense love and grace. Bahuri Krupakari Umahi Sunava. So that's the second axis. So one axis is in the mortal world, in which Yajnavalkya is telling the story to Bharadvaj. The other axis where the story originated is Shivji telling the katha to his wife Parvati ji. Soi siva kaga bhusundi hi dinha. So he says that this katha is not limited to just my wife. I'm going to spread it everywhere. And by everywhere, it is not the ahankari mortals like us that he chooses. He chooses first Kag Bhusundi, the crow. So Shivji calls the crow, or the crow goes to him. We'll come to that story much later in the last part of the Manas, in the Uttarkand. But Shivji tells the story to Kag Bhusundi. So we have been talking about grace, about the democratic access to grace, about the fact that grace is not a door that is shut on anyone. In fact, there is no door. And what more beautiful, solid example can you have for that, apart from Shivji himself? While he's narrating the story to Uma, then also calls a crow, Kāṇḍa, and tells this story directly, direct access to Kāṇḍa. Soi siva Kāṇḍa hi dinha, Rama Bhagata Adhikari Chinha. Because he tested him and found him to be the Adhikari, someone who's capable of Ram Bhakti. So what was his Adhikar? Did he have wealth? Did he have power? Did he have tamjham? Did he have articulation? He's just crowing. But the Adhikar was the love and the sincerity, that urge to know what it is. And that made him an Adhikari, because of which Shivji told on the one hand, his better half, his other half, the two are one, his Ardhangini, and then a crow, Kāṇḍa. So, Soi Siva Kāṇḍa hi dinha. That's the second axis of the story. So, one axis is happening on the banks of Ganga, Jamuna, at the Sangam at Prayagraj, Yajnavalkya telling the story to Bharadwaj. The second is Shivji telling to Parvati. The third is Shivji telling to Kāṇḍa. So, it's not a linear transmission. You have, one axis, then you have Shivji telling to Parvati, but Parvati is not giving it to Kāṇḍa. So it's not like a linear axis with a very straight line. It's Shivji himself then telling Kāṇḍa directly. So whatever Parvati ji has heard, is also heard by Kāṇḍa. It's the same story, directly from the same source. It's not, diluted, changed, transformed by multiple layers of storytelling. It's direct access that Kāṇḍa has had, because he's the Adhikari, he's capable of Ram Bhakti. Tehisana jaga balika puni pawa. Now again, classic Tulsidas. Tehisana mane kin se? Yajnavalkya Rishi ne Kāṇḍa se paya. Tehisan, who's Tehi? Is it Shivji or is it Kāṇḍa? It could be both. So commentators who say no, Yajnavalkya could not have got this story from a mere crow. Now that is problematic, because this mere crow is the one who has been graced by Shivji. But then he uses pawa, hum prasad paate hain. So prasad to Shivji hi denge. So it could be Shivji who told Yajnavalkya in his sadhana, or it could be that Yajnavalkya listened to the story from the crow. We don't know. It could be both. So Tehisana could be Shivji himself then gave it to Yajnavalkya, or it could also be that Tehisana is Kāṇḍa, having heard the story, then created that line of migration by giving the story further to Yajnavalkya. It could be both. Tulsidas ji very, very beautifully gives that place of play, again diffusing this idea that there is one Ur story that is coming through ages, unchanged, untransformed, eternal. He just collapses that by this statement in which we don't even know where did Yajnavalkya get the story from. Was it Kāṇḍa or was it Shivji? So there is no single line of migration. It's coming from multiple sources to multiple people. This is again stamped later in the Uttarakhand when Lomesh, the guru, tells the story to Kāṇḍa. So Kāṇḍa already knows the story from Shivji, but he's told the story again by Lomesh Rishi. Similarly, over here, Yajnavalkya in his sadhana knows the story, but Shivji graces him with prasad, and hence Katha Pai or Tehisana could also be Kāṇḍa. Tini Puni Bharadwaja Pratigava. And then he told that story to Bharadwaj, as we saw in the beginning. Te Shrota Bhakata Samasila Samadarasi Janahi Harilila. Now, all these three Shrotas and Vaktas, these three groupings of Shrotas and Vaktas, are Samadarasi. They are equipoised. They are having complete control of their mind. Their chittavrittis are quietened, because of which they are in the full know of Harilila. Then the question is, if they are so much in equipoise, why is the story being told to them? They already know it. It is for Anand, because we saw that the whole point of the Katha is to have the rasa, so that we may listen to more Katha and more Katha and more Katha. So they are the ones who know entirely of the Harilila, but still the Katha was told to them. But they are the ones who are blessed with equanimity, and hence they know the entire charit of Shri Ram even before knowing the Katha. Te Shrota Bhakata Samasila. Ab ye Te Shrota Bhakta kaun hai? Ye teen pairs hai. Yajnavalkya and Bharadwaj, Shivji and Parvati ji, and Shivji and Kāṇḍa. So these three pairs are the ones who know the entire story of Shri Ram, but still the story is being recited again and again to them. Janaki Tini, yeah, Preeti, you have a question.
Did not Agastya also do the Ram Katha to Shivji?
Yes. So, but it's not that Agastya was the one who told the Katha to Shivji. The Katha is, Yeah, no one listens to the Ramayana for the first time. So
Yeah, of course.
the Katha was told, of course, by Agastya to many people. But Shivji is the one, according to Goswamiji, who produced the Katha, because it was in the heart, out of love, that this Katha came. So Shivji is always ready, like Hanuman. I mean, Hanumanji is an avatar of Shivji, a son of Shivji, depending on, is he a son or an avatar, how you read the Hanuman Chalisa. But Hanuman is all eager to listen to the Katha every time. He's here now as we recite the Katha. So Shivji very much is listening to the Katha.
He's the Adi author.
Yeah. So that's the whole diffusion of the linear migration or the linear telling of the story that he's diffusing over here. This Katha is told by many to many, in many times, in many ways. But these three pairs, Shiv Parvati, Shiv Kāṇḍa, and Yajnavalkya Bharadwaj, are the ones who know the whole Leela and are telling the same story. So you go to this, some places where you get an echo. So the same story is being said and reflected, said and reflected, said and reflected. It's 100% echo, if there is any such thing. It's the pure Katha that is being told by these three pairs. Janahi tini kala nijagyana. Because of their contemplation, because of their meditation, because of their great spiritual practices, they know all the three kals, what's happened in the past, what's happening now, and what is going to happen in the future. Which is why Yajnavalkya was able to tell the story to Janaka. He knows, he's a seer, he's a rishi, he's a darshanik. Karatalagata amalaka samana. So they know everything as if you have placed an amla, a gooseberry, on the hand. So if you place a gooseberry on the hand, Karatal is this part. If you place, we had seen this reference earlier also, that if you don't know the name Ram, then even if the whole gunas are stored on your palm, you would not be able to understand them because you don't know what it is. In that description, this Karatal Gata Amla metaphor was there. Now he's bringing it here again, saying that they know all the three times, past, present, and future, and hence the entire Katha as it is, as clearly as one would see a gooseberry from all directions if one were to hold that gooseberry on one's palm. Karatalagata amalaka samana. Auravu je Hari Bhagata Sujana. The other well-meaning, well-knowing Hari Bhaktas are not the same as these three pairings. Hence, kahahi sunahi samuchahi pithinana. They understand according to their own way. They tell the story according to their own way, moods, variations, vrittis, and hence the story starts getting multiplied and pithinana comes across as many tellings. Because not everyone are these samadarshis like Kāṇḍa, Shivji, Parvatiji, Bharadwaj, and Yajnavalkya. These are the ones who tell the story as it is. Though aise hai, there is no variation. They are echoing the same story. There is no variation. But as it starts getting propagated, we take the story according to our state of mind. My state of mind today morning is not the same as it was yesterday evening, will not be the same as it is going to be tomorrow morning. Why that? From one moment to the other, our state of mind is changing. In that, we have to take this katha. So, बताने वाले कथाकार कुछ कहते हैं, हम कुछ और समझते हैं, हम समझने के बाद कुछ और ही बात कहते हैं. But if our intention is clear, if our sincerity is there, the katha is beautiful. So on the one hand, the katha is manifold. It is going in all directions because we are limiting and limited to the katha. So our limited bodies, our limiting selves, because of all our thoughts, all the chaos that goes on in our mind, take the katha in that state of mind. And when we propagate the katha, we are also in a particular state of mind, and hence we tell the katha that way. So this is why the katha is manifold. It comes in all sorts of forms. So Goswami ji is saying, don't worry कि अरे ये यहाँ पे तो ऐसे लिखा है, वहाँ पे तो वैसे लिखा है, सच क्या है? सब कुछ सच है as long as that sincerity of purpose is there and as long as the katha anand is there. That's one axis now of why there are multiple tellings. The other is the character of Hari himself, Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. You cannot tell, if you say that Ram Katha begins here and ends here, we have not got the sense of the katha. It is infinite. It is an infinite flowing stream that starts in the heart of Shivji. But even there, it is infinitely flowing. Shivji himself is eternal. It is in his eternal heart that the katha begins in inverted commas, but the katha has no beginning and no end. And Goswami ji will tell us through another metaphor later. So now see, so many things are happening over here. There are three kathakars who are echoing the same story perfectly. Then the Katha starts getting migrated. Bharadwaj then would have obviously told his pupils and students and so many other people. They then propagated it. And finally, it reached Goswamiji through his guru. But by that time, the Katha had changed, transformed, migrated, and had come into multiple tellings. Which one is right? What's the Ur Katha? Can we go back to the original? Goswamiji says it is pointless. Rishi's pool and Nadi's mool kathi shodhune. Never ask the clan of a Rishi and the source of a river. Because if you go upstream of the Ganga, where does it begin? There's so many rivulets, so many streams. So you pick some random point, call it Gomukh, and say, okay, this is where, from this glacier is where it is beginning. But then there's another rivulet that will be formed the next year because of some shift. So you can never really say that this is the origin of the river. You just, for your own satisfaction, make some point and say this is the origin. Similarly, the Ramakatha, it is infinite. Don't go searching for the Ur story because even there it will come in multiple tellings. So Aurahu je Hari Bhagati Sujana, Kahahi Sunahi Samujhahi Bidhinana. So the Katha gets into all sorts of forms because the Katha itself is infinite. And the tellers of the Katha are in their Chittavritti forms. So they also start changing the Katha. So never try to search the origin of the Katha. It is multifarious, multi-layered, in multiple tellings it's going to come and go. Just accept it, enjoy it as it is. And if your state of mind is in a position to receive it, it will transform, is what Goswamiji is saying over here. How did I study the Katha? Now Goswamiji is answering that. Main puni nija guru sanasuni. I learned about the Katha from my own guru. Katha so Sukar Khet, in a place called Sukar Khet. So Sukar Khet, so you've got the Ganga flowing. Above that, you've got the Sharayu, or Ayodhya ji is on the banks of the Sharayu. And to the west of Ayodhya ji, above on the upper bank of Sharayu, and to the east of Lucknow is a little town Rajapur. And over there, Tul Goswamiji was born around that area. There's this place called Sukar Khet. And Sukar Khet, Sukar is Varaha, the boar form, the boar. And it is said that it is there that the boar form came to be of Vishnu, and hence it is called Sukar Khet, the field of the boar. So, Main Puni Nija Gura Sana Suni Katha So Sukar Khet. I listened to that story in a place called Sukar Khet near my hometown. Samujhi nahi tasi Bāla taba ati rahe chet. But I was a little boy then, and I never really fully understood the story because my mind was not prepared. So now he's playing this both ways. He's saying that whatever your age, your knowledge is, the fact that we are in the Kali Yuga, the Katha is going to come to us and we are going to sponge it in based on our state of mind. We are going to propagate it based on our state of mind while propagating it. Receivers are going to receive it based on their mood of the day. But when the Katha was told to me, I was a child myself and acheta, meri buddhi bhi itni nahi thi. So is he saying that I received it hence in a cleaner fashion because my chitta vrittis were not going here and there? I had a clean mind as a child and hence I got the Katha in a direct access form even though I didn't get it? Or is he saying that I was so dumb that I didn't get it? It could be both. Again, so he's saying कि मैं बाल बुद्धि का था, but a child gets a story because he's not tormented by all the other emotive matrix that we as adults are tormented by. They have direct access to things. Samujhi nahi tasi balapana taba ati rahe achet. I was not fully aware of things, and samujhi nahi tasi, I did not understand it like that. Like what? Like what my guru was telling me, or like this, the way people receive it in multiple forms. Is he saying that I understood it as Shivji wanted to tell it because as a little child my mind was clean? He's giving all these layers of interpretation. The direct layer of interpretation is, of course, I did not fully understand it as I was a little child with an undeveloped mind. Then he says, Shrota Bakata Jnananidhi Katha Ram Ke Good. The Shrota, the people who were listening to the Katha of my Guru, and the Bhakta, my Guru himself, the Bhakta, they were a sea of knowledge. Jnananidhi Katha Ram Ke Good. And how deep was this sea of knowledge? Its depths were not to be found. It was, infinite because Ram Katha Good hai. It is so mysterious that if you say, what is the depth of the sea of the Katha, you can't measure it. So you have an immeasurable Katha being told by great scholars to great listeners who are also great scholars. And I sit there with my Guru. How can I get the Katha? Kimi samujhao main jeev jada. Main to jad jeev hoon. Main Katha kaise samjhu? Kalimala grasita bimood. Again, is he talking of himself or is he talking of others? Because as a child, is he Kalimala Grasita Bimood? He's Bimood, yes. But is he Kalimala Grasit as a child, a little child? Yes and no, both. So now is he saying that your arrogance of knowledge might be a hindrance to having direct access to the Katha, because as adults, we are all Kalimal Grasit. Make your mind like a child and open it up to the Katha. Is he saying that as a second layer of interpretation? Or is he saying that how am I supposed to understand this great Katha being told by one scholar to another group of scholars when I, a little child, who's completely inflicted by the torments of the Kali, will be able to understand? So this is the fourth axis of the Katha. Goswamiji receiving the Katha from his Guru and telling it to us. So as a summary, Yajnavalkya to Bharadvaj, Shivji to Parvatiji, Shivji to Kāṇḍa then telling to Yajnavalkya, or Yajnavalkya being graced by the story from Shivji himself. Then the axis of migration to the mortal world is the Yajnavalkya Bharadvaja axis, which then goes down up to the Guru of Goswamiji. And then Goswamiji gets the Katha from his Guru, but he's also blessed by Shiva. So he also has direct access to Shivji. And then the Katha is being propagated even now as we speak, listen, enjoy the Katha. So that's the context of the Katha. Any questions on this? Yeah.
You're saying that Tulsidas ji also had a direct access to Shiva. In how would you say that? Could you just dwell on it a little bit more?
Because in the beginning, when he's going through this self-doubt, he says, it is by Shivji's grace that I tell you the Katha. All my doubts are gone. He has very explicitly said that it is because of Shivji's grace that in spite of all my limitations, I will be telling the Katha to you. We had seen that Dohā earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Sajri.
So not directly here, but the thought just came to me that it's been about Shivji, and in many other instances, it's also Shivji. Does Brahma not feature anywhere?
He features many times in terms of creation. He features many times in describing the beauty of Sita ji, etc. But I think he's not featuring because there was no such conflict as worshippers of Shiva and worshippers of Brahma fighting amongst each other. Or, Vishnu worshippers being exclusive, saying, no, we are mean and clean. We don't want any other interference from these Rāmamargis. That, I mean, we don't really have even today a large section of Brahma worshippers. So I think the project, of course, it was, his transcendental thoughts of Rāmakatha, but he's basically trying to bring in the Shaivic and Vaishnavic traditions together. Okay. There's no Brahma tradition per se to talk of.
I see. Okay. And one other thing, just like and this is again, I'm not aware, you have so many versions of the Bhagavad Gita, which have been, which are propagated, which are printed, which are spoken about, for the corporate world, for the youngsters, for the teens. I mean, it's just in every which were compressed, blah, blah, blah. But is there something like, I mean, since the Manas is in itself also so full of so much it has to offer, are there such versions of it?
So when you say versions, I think it means two things. One, like you talked of Bhagavad Gita versions, but the Bhagavad Gita text as we have it of 700 verses is pretty fixed. I mean, but yeah, people have interpretations of it. But yes, there are so many interpretations of the Manas. I mean, there are so many Kathakars who tell the Katha. They have different styles. And since you asked this question, there are three styles. The style in Ayodhya ji, the style in Varanasi, and there's another style, I don't know the origin of the location of that style. But in Ayodhya ji, the Katha is typically told the way we are going, very linear, verse by verse. It goes on for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. We saw that last time in the conclusion, that Kathas were told for 15 years by this one. That's the Ayodhya tradition. The Varanasi tradition is you take a prasang and you weave the Katha around it. So you don't necessarily go in a linear form. You take any prasang, like the prasang of Hanumanji bringing the Sanjeevani booty by picking up the mountain. And in that narrative framing, you tell the whole Katha. And you do that over 5, 7, 8, 12, 15 sessions. But you don't really go verse by verse. The third is the Hanumat Paddhati, in which you go linear, but you jump, suddenly you take a break and go somewhere else because you get a peg or a trigger. It's a Hanumat, it's called a Hanumat Paddhati because you jump like a monkey from one place to another and then come back. So these are the three variations of katha telling. But of course, I mean, the other question was, katha for the modern world, katha for corporates, etc. The way the Gita has done that, the Manas is not really available in that compression, because it's a big story, and 90% of the kathas are told as kathas, like just a narration on one of these three ways. There's a fourth style which developed later, which is the charit. So you take Sugriv, Vibhishan, Sita, Ram, Ravan. You just talk of characters. Bharat Charitra, Bandhu Premumay Bharat. You take that theme, and so that's the fourth tradition which developed later through Pandit Ramkinkar Upadhyay. So these are the four variations: Doha, Chaupai, linear, Prasang, Hanumat, and Charit. But we are going more or less the Ayodhya way.
I just wanted to ask you, when you said that the Shaivism followers and the Vaishnava followers, that a lot of these scriptural granths that we read, stutis, sometimes from certain important saints and all of that, they tend to create a sort of a union that this is actually versions of the same thing, or they're both actually fanboys of each other, And like in Srimad Bhagavatam also, for example, there are wonderful Shiv Stutis also there, and Shiv Stutis for Vishnu are also there. Is it consciously to unite pathways, or you think it is just the way it was? We just understand the Sanatana Dharma is different. Seeing things from a different vantage point. If I climb the mountain from this side, I see a certain view, and I climb the mountain from the other side, I see another view. Like if you say Devi Bhagavat also tends to talk about from the perspective of Shakta principle, that Vishnu, Mahesh, and Brahma are actually female. That she is actually everything else, and so
she's also the birth giver of the three.
Yes. And she's the empress. She's not the wife of, but she's the empress. Mahalakshmi. So is it, as I said, is it consciously to unite, or is it really, it is understanding Parabrahma in a Saguna form in so many aspects?
I think it's both, but mainly it's not a response to something. It is the way it is. It's not even a conscious effort to create a clinically, clean version of how things are in a monist tradition. It is how they understood it. So it's not, because if it were a response, it will die out over time once the problem is solved. But it is eternal. It's always there. And now something eternal can stay only if it is created in a constructive manner and not as a response to something, to socially change something. So they say that there are 5 deities given to understand that they are one. If there were only one, जैसे गणेश जी अनुग्रह के लिए है, Shakti, Devi, Tirodhan hai. Shivji is destruction, Vishnu is sustenance, and Brahma or Surya is creation. So you have these deities. Sorry?
Devi is, what did you say? You use the word Devi?
Tirodhan. I mean, she brings everything together, the holding part, the Shakti. Tirodhan is also dissolution, but Tirodhan also means, otherwise everything would just dissipate. The putting things together, that holding power is Shakti. Grace is Ganesh. And Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, of course, we know creation, sustenance, and destruction. Now, the tradition says that if you worship God only as Devi, then you are excluding the male from it. If you worship it only as a male form, you're excluding females or the middle gender from it. If you worship it only as a Pashu, as a snake, a monkey, an elephant, you are making it very exclusivist there. If you worship it only as energy in the form of Surya, everything. So you have to worship it in these 5 forms of grace, Shakti, creation, sustenance, destruction, and these 5. And if you worship them in these 5, then they all are mere dimensions of the same truth, which is one. Which is that on the palm. They all unite at the base of your palm as one. So to answer your question, I don't think it was just a response to some kind of exclusivist paths.
Like a politically correct thing to do.
It is the way they understood things.
Correct, yeah.
You can see divinity in everything only if you believe that everything is pulsating with divinity. So what is the difference between us daubing a stone on the roadside with saffron and worshipping it, and someone who is worshipping that and really sees potency only in that stone and in nothing else? The difference is the point of view, the vision that you have, that everything is pulsating with divinity. And hence, what is Shiva is Ram, is Krishna, is Sita, is Bhagavati, everything is one. So that's the, I mean, I don't know if I answer your question, but that's how
Oh,
I
get it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So anything else? Okay, if not, then we'll move on now. So this is how the Katha came to be. I'll, because it is very interesting, I'll share a picture. It's not a great picture in terms of art, but it's still, it makes understanding these 4 traditions of the Katha easier. So we have this picture now. Manas ke char ghat. So the sea of the story of love of Ram and Sita, and the love that we have for Ram and Sita, is infinite. You cannot measure the depth of it. It is also surrounded by mountains and bad terrain, which is the Kali Yuga. In fact, Goswamiji will come to that description ahead in the Katha in the coming weeks. And how do we access this story then when it is surrounded by such inaccessible, inhospitable territory? I mean, going to Mount Kailas is so difficult, was so difficult in the earlier days. How do you reach there? You reach there through 4 ghats, which have 7 steps. So the northernmost ghat is the Bhakti Ghat, which is easy to reach because you've got the, I mean, to put it on a geographical matrix, you've got an easy access from the north to the sea because maybe the terrain over there is softer in slope. So Bhakti gives you direct access from the northern ghat, and that story is told by Kāṇḍa the crow to Garuda. Garuda comes with Ahankara, and Kāṇḍa says, I'm a little crow and I'm going to throw my story away into you. Dissolve your Ahankara and we'll both become great bhaktas. So that's the Bhakti Ghat. The eastern ghat is the Karma Ghat. You do this, you don't do this, do's and don'ts, Karma Kand, which kind of set in a certain Vairagya, which is the story of Yajnavalkya to Bharadwaj. We saw this axis. The left ghat is the Jnana Ghat. You know, that you're already pure and pious. You don't need to do all that karma kand to reach that stage. But we as mortals cannot. Shivji can. He's eternally in that state. So he tells the story in that trance, on that high. And that's the trance of the knowledge ghat, which is the story told by Shivji to Parvati ji. If we are not great bhaktas, if we don't, be karmakand busybodies, if we are not able to have access to that knowledge, or even if we have access to it because of our vrittis, if we can't digest it in, how do we get to the Katha? Then we listen to Goswamiji, the Sharanagati Ghat. You just prostrate before divinity and he embraces you. That's the Ghat of Sharanagati, Goswamiji, Tulsidas, or Unke. So he's telling this Katha to himself, Unka Man, but it is also us. So our Ghat is this Ghat. Now remember that just as the Pancha Tattvas are not exclusive, Akash Tattva mein baki ke 4 hai, Prithvi mein baki ke 4 hai, these ghats are not exclusives. We are not 24/7 in Sharanagati. We have moments, flashes of insights of some, sparks, say, oh, I get it now. But then we fall back. Then we are, taking a dip on this ghat. We then suddenly say, no, I have to get up at this point. I have to do my morning practice of yoga. I have to have my breakfast before this time. I'm going to be off social media. I'm just not going to be, I'm going to go on a digital detox, as they say. This is modern day karma kand, do's and don'ts. You're on this ghat at that time. And then at sometimes you're just in a bhakti mood. You're singing a nice bhajan, you're doing your puja, you jump to the Kāṇḍa Garud Ghat, and then you fall back to your natural place, which is Sharanagati. So we are all accessing the Katha through these 4 ghats, and the tellings of these 4 ghats are also very different. They also have a very different flavor. And then you can take a dip through 7 steps. And what are these 7 steps? These are the Bāla, Ayodhya, Aranya, Kishkindha, Sundar, Lanka, and Uttara. So these 4 Kāṇḍas take you step by step. They hold our hand. It's like climbing through a rope, but with a trainer that is so good that you feel you're floating and going up. So we will never know when we've entered the waters of the Katha and when we have been washed by it, because we are accessing it through these 4 ghats and through these 7 steps built for us by these great storytellers. Yeah, Sajvi.
No. I thought I was curious about the steps, so I think I just jumped the gun. And aapne phir bol diya. Fine, thank you.
Okay, so this is a book cover, but I thought I'll bring this picture up because I think it shows some things much easily than what one can say through words. Okay, so much so for the 4 ghats. And so Goswamiji is saying that the Katha So 3 things basically to summarize this whole Doha Chaupai set. The Katha in its Ur form, there is no Ur form, but in its pious pure form is available only through Shiv Parvati ji, Kagbasundi Garud, and through Yajnavalkya Bharadwaj on these 3. The lower ghat is where the Katha multiplies because there are multiple retellings, multiple receptions based on our state of minds. But if the purpose is sincere, still you will get access to those waters because the ghats have been carved for us by these greats. And we don't know on which ghat we are right now. 99% we are on this ghat, but sometimes we just jump over, right? I mean, I decided to stay off WhatsApp for 7 days. I managed to stay off WhatsApp for 5 hours. So, then I say, okay, let me make those 5 hours to 6 hours or whatever. So I've really not been able to do 100% digital detox, but we try. So then we are moving on the Karma Kand ghat in a modern sense. Okay, so that's how the 4 ghats are. We'll go back now to our text. And we'll move on to the next Doha Chaupai block. Again, a very, very beautiful block of Doha Chaupais from the Manas. Now we saw the potency of the name. We saw the potency of the Roop, the Sagun Roop. So there are Naam, Roop, Leela, and Dham. Now we are going to see the potency of the Katha, the Leela. How powerful is the Katha? Naam Mahima is done. Now he begins with Katha Mahima. It's a big Doha Chaupai block with many Chaupais that are more than the normal Doha Chaupai block numbering. So we'll begin now with Doha Chaupai block 31, which is the Gunagan of the Katha itself. So in the Katha, we have the adulation of the Katha. तदपि कही गुर बारहि बारा समुझ परी कछु मति अनुसारा भाषा बद्ध कर बिमय सोई मोरे मन प्रबोध जेहि होई जस कछु बुद्धि विवेक बल मेरे तस कहि हऊँ ही हरि के प्रेरे निज संदेह मोह भ्रम हरनी करऊँ कथा भव सरिता तरनी बुध विश्राम सकल जन रंजनी राम कथा कलि कलुष विभंजनी राम कथा कलि पन्नग भरनी पुनि विवेक पावक कहूँ अरनी राम कथा कलि कामद गाई सुजन सजीवन मूरि सुहाई सोई बसुधा तल सुधा तरंगिनी भय भंजनी भ्रम भेक भुवंगिनी असुर सेन सम नरकनि कंदिनी साधु विबुध कुल हित गिरि नंदिनी संत समाज पयोधिरमासी विश्व भार भर अचल क्षमासी जमगन मुहमसी जग जमुनासी जीवन मुकुति हेतु जनुकासी राम ही प्रिय पावनी तुलसी सी तुलसीदास हित हिय हुलसीसी शिव प्रिय मेखल शैल सुतासी सकल सिद्ध सुख संपत्ति राशि सदगुण सुरगन अम्ब अदितिसी रघुबर भगति प्रेम परमितिसी राम कथा मंदाकिनी चित्रकूट चितचारु तुलसी सुखग स्नेह बन सिय रघुपीर बिहारू. Okay, so now we'll move on to this next Doha Chaupai block and then see how this whole katha is unfolding. So now he's singing the glories of the katha itself. So tadapi kahi gura barahi bara. My guru then, because he was a sea and storehouse of compassion, told this story to me again and again and again. So it is said that Goswami ji in his learning phase listened to this katha from his guru 12 times and then 108 times. So it is said that if you want to have siddhi, if you want to have mastery over a certain thing, you need to do that 108 times. Now this was the old world. I think nowadays they say what, 10,000 hours, or like if you want to have command over something, you need to invest 10,000 hours. This is, the modern parlance of it. The old parlance is 108 times. I think it will effectively come out to be much more than 10,000 hours. But so he listened to this katha and reflected on it 108 times because his guru himself told this katha to him at least 12 times, barahi bara, again and again. Samujhi pari kachu mati anusara. And then I understood the katha according to my own, limitations, understanding, state of mind. And then bhasa baddha karibi mai soi. So, and then I brought it into Bhasha. I articulated it in Awadhi. So probably he was told the Katha in Sanskrit, and then he did a linguistic migration into Awadhi. That's another stream that has started. Bhasha baddha karibi main soi, more mana prabodha jai hoi. Just as my mind understood, I then brought it out in Awadhi. So he's saying that I am not the originator of the Katha. It is all the tradition. I have no, originality in it. But I have created another migration line, which is bringing it into Bhasha, into Awadhi. Bhasha baddha karabi main soi, more mana prabodha jahi hoi. Jasa kachu buddhi vivek bala more. Whatever little knowledge, vivek I had, tasa kahi haun hiya Hari ke prere. My heart is inspired by Hari. So during the earlier dark night of the soul phase, he has said that it is because of Shivji's grace that I'm going to tell you the Katha. Now he says that the inspiration in my heart is Hari himself. So it is he who came in my heart and said, tell this Katha. So he's spreading his eggs in both baskets. He's taking the grace of Shivji and the inspiration of Hari and saying, now I'm enabled to tell the Katha. Jasakachu buddhi viveka balamore. Nija sandeha moha brahma harani. And from this part begins the Gunagan of the Katha. So we have seen that he's fallen back again and again into, will I be able to do it? Will I not be able to do it? No, I'm not going to be able to do it. And then finally, this is a final wash to that, saying the Katha itself is Nija Sandeha Moha Brahma Harani. It will destroy all my self-doubts, all my moha and my Brahma. Now, commentators have made large exegesis on what is Sandeha, what is moha, what is Brahma. Just a short insight into it. So Sandeha is when you are always conflicted between ye karu ya wo karu. So you are sometimes convinced that this is the way to go through your heart, but your head is telling you something else. Or you go by the way of your head, but your heart is saying no, don't do that. And it is this dilemma, this ye karu ya wo karu, that Sandeha that kills us, that destroys us. Because there is I think in Madhushala, I think the opening phrase or the first or second is, I think, मदिरालय जाने को घर से चलता है पीने वाला, किस पथ से जाऊं असमंजस में है वह भोला भाला, अलग अलग पथ बतलाते सब पर मैं यह बतलाता हूं, राह पकड़ तू एक चलाचल, पा जाएगा मधुशाला. So this is where Goswami ji is saying, don't worry whether you're doing this or that, this deity or that deity, aaj is mandir mein, kal us mandir mein, aaj ye. Stick to one, stay on that path. Ultimately, all of them are going to reach the same destination. Give up all your doubts and sandeha. Sarvadeva namaskara, Keshavam pratigachati. They all land up on the lap of Keshava. So you need to drop your sandeha. Moha is defined, or the exegesis says that it is ajnana, lack of knowledge, and Brahm is false knowledge. So ajnana is you don't have any knowledge at all, and Brahm is that you think you have knowledge, but it is false knowledge. So you have to understand that these three things exist. There is sandeha, there's doubt, there's moha, and there's Brahm. But the katha, if you let yourself just be in the waters of the katha, it will take away all these three. It will slowly start washing. And remember that the Ram Katha is not a shell. A shell is a mountain. It's not a stone. It is a water. But a water can chop off great mountains. So the stones of our ahankars, who have the razor's edge like that of a diamond, even that can be softened and washed and carved by the waters of the Katha, which is why it is Rāmacaritamānasa. It is not Rāmcharit, Parvat. It is a manas. The waters lash on the stone ahankar, and we never know when it is dissolved and taken away. Anyhow, so Nija Sandeha Moha Brahmaharani Karau Katha Bhava Sarita Tarani. And in the Sarita, in the river of the material world, it is a boat through which we can easily cross over this transient world of material existence. Buddha Vishrama Sakala Jana Ranjani. So the Katha is a Vishram Sthali for scholars. So it is said about the Bhagavata that Vidyavatam Bhagavate Pariksha. There are verses in the Bhagavat that put scholarship to test. You don't know how to interpret them, because if you interpret it one way, there's a following verse that says the opposite. So you have to be extremely careful in scholarly interpretation of the Bhagavata. And hence the scholars then come to the Ram Katha and say, yahan pe to kuch mere dimag ko Vishram mil jaye. So for the Buddhas, for the great Buddhas, it is a Vishram Sthali. But he's also saying that anything else around your scholarship in which you are grinding the axe of mental jugglery is shrama eva hi kevalam. It is all useless effort. Come to the katha and rest in it. So for the great scholars, it is a Vishram Sthali. But for people who are just coming there for enjoyment, for joy, Sakala Jana Ranjani. It is not inaccessible. It is not like some literary criticism work which only one critic understands what the other person has written. No one else is able to fathom or understand what is being written in literary criticism. So it's not like that. Anyone can come to the katha and get from it. So एक तरफ वो सकल जन रंजनी है, दूसरी तरफ बुधों के लिए विश्राम स्थली है. राम कथा कलि कलुष विभंजनी. And all the kalimal that we have is washed away by the beauty of the Ram Katha. Rama Katha Kali Pannag Bharani. What is a Pannag? A Pannag is a snake. Now, the Kali Mala is a snake that is continuously biting us. So, these texts are also always talking with each other. So, if you see the Bhagavat, you have Parikshit who's going to die of the bite of a snake in 7 days. We had talked about this last time, which is all of us. We all are in Kali Mala being bitten by the venom of Kali. And all of us, no exceptions, are going to die from Monday to Sunday. What do? We open our hearts out to something that is eternal so that the transient then falls back. So Pannaga is the snake and Bharani has 3 meanings. So Bharani is taken to be a kind of mongoose, a variety of mongoose that can go and bite this snake. So the katha is like this variety of mongoose that goes and bites this snake of Kali and eats it up. The second meaning of Bharani, it is a kind of tool that axes this snake. The third meaning of Bharani is it is a mantra. So if you have, venom in your body, there are some mantras that can remove the potency. So remember that the Ram Katha is also acting in a very subterranean manner against superstition. Because it is saying that the only mantra that you need is Ram Katha. Don't worry too much about everything else. The Ram Katha will give you the fix. So it is this Katha that will act as a mantra to the snake of Kalimala and destroy it even before you know it. You don't need anything else. Puni viveka pavaka kahu arani. Now, if you are on the scholarly path, because we have all our pindas are different, everyone is different. So someone is scholarly, someone is bhakta, someone is just superficial, and there's no right and wrong. But for the great vivekis, who are coming to the katha to find some kind of discretion knowledge, the katha is like the arani. Now, what is the arani? And what is pavak? So pavak is the fire. So the katha for those coming to seek knowledge is like the arani is for fire. Now, to understand what an arani is, you need to have experienced a yajna. So in a yajna, when the fire is set up, you take a block of wood, you put in a wooden danda in it, and then you churn it. And then because of the friction, fire sets in. Then you are giving birth to fire. So it has always to be done by the yajmana in the presence of his wife. Without a wife, you can't be a yajman. You have to be a gruhasthi. And then the wife carries that fire like a baby and puts it in the yajna kunda, and then the flames of the yajna come up. So that's the arani. That's how the fire is churned before any grand yajna begins. So he's saying that if you are the knowledgeable and are seeking that fire, then the katha is like the arani. It will spark that fire. So I've just got an image of the arani, of how that fire is started in a yajna, so that you know what's going on over here. See, this is how that fire is created. So you have a wooden danda, you put it in another wooden block, and you put in some mitti or something like that to create friction, and then you start churning this. And when that churning happens, smoke starts emerging and little sparks of fire start coming out from there that are caught in some twigs, and then that is carried with great care to the yajna kunda, and then the havan begins. And then you have this huge fire coming out of the yajna kunda. So to create that fire, you need to have this arani. So if you are a viveki looking for the scholarship fire to set in, then what arani can you use? The arani is the katha. So the katha, while it is a Vishram Sthali for the Buddhas, it is also giving you scholarly access by this source fire of the Katha. That is what Goswamiji is saying over here. So to understand what he's saying, you need to know what an arani is. So which is why I brought up the image. So the Arani is what the Katha is for the fire of scholarship. Puni viveka pavaka kaho Arani, Rama Katha kali Kāṇḍa gai. Now, if you're someone who's desiring things, who's having material wants, then it is like the Kāmadhenu, the wish-fulfilling cow. You just ask and it will give. Sujana Sajivani Muri Suhai. And for the Sajjanas, it is like the Sanjivani booty. So, there are some sadhus who don't speak at all. They just, whatever you go, they just write something and then say, go. Or they just don't talk at all. Because they say that in the Kali Yuga, anything apart from Nam is worthless. We don't want to even waste a single moment in talking of Kamkaj. We just want to talk of Ramkaj. So all they say is Ram, 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 or nothing. So for the Sajjanas, it is like this Sanjivani booty that gives them life. It nurtures them in spite of being surrounded by the poison of Kalimal, which is the Katha. Soi Basudha Tala Sudha Tarangini. Sudha is nectar or Amrit. Ab Vasudha, on the earth, this Katha is like a wave of ambrosia. Now, this is so multi-layered. Ambrosia makes you eternal. It makes you immortal. So the Katha is eternally flowing. It is a wave eternally available to us. The Katha doesn't begin and end anywhere. Soi Basudha Tala Sudha Tarangini. It is like a wave of ambrosia available over there always. If ambrosia makes one immortal, can ambrosia itself be mortal? No. It has the making someone immortal is its potency. That which has that potency has to be more than that potency itself. So ambrosia is obviously immortal, which is to say that the Katha is immortal. The Katha was there even before Ram Avatar. Ram Avatar came to be to give us enjoyment of the Katha. He comes and goes again and again. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I will come again and again in every yuga. There is no beginning, there is no end. And hence the Katha is like this wave of ambrosia always there. When did it begin? We don't know. When will it end? It will definitely not. So, Soi Basudha Tala Sudha Tarangini, Bhaya Bhanjani Brahma Bheka Bhuvantini. So, for the fears that we have of disease, of death, of what if I fall into poverty, what if, wealth makes me arrogant, what if my arrogance starts working in different ways? For all these fears, the Katha is the final solution. It will take care of all that. Brahma and all the agyans that we have, that my sense of achievement is power, wealth, health, beauty. Those that absolute sense of achievement that we have, these are mere frogs croaking. And for these frogs, the Katha is like a snake that will just eat them up. So on top, he's saying that for the Kali snake, it is like a mantra. Over here, it is saying that for the snakes of, for the frogs of false knowledge, it is like a snake that will eat them up. So again, a snake is neither poisonous nor harmful. It depends on what perspective you see it with. One man's food is the other man's poison. So over here, the snake is coming as a blessing to eat away the frogs of Brahma. Over there, for the Kali snake, the Katha is like a mantra. So the Katha is a snake and also the killer of snakes at the same time. Asura Sena Sama Narakani Kandini. I think Preeti, you mentioned the Bhagavad, the Devi Bhagavad. This is a direct reference to the Devi. So the Katha is like the Devi. Sadhu Pibudha Kula Hita Giri Nandini. Okay, so let's unfold it from the other direction. Giri is a mountain. Nandini is a daughter of the mountain, which is Parvati, who came in the form of Durga to kill the Asuras. So the Katha is like Parvati, who is the daughter of the mountain, who came to protect the family or the grouping of the gods and the sadhus by killing the sane of the Asuras, by killing the army of the Asuras. Now, what is the army of the Asuras? It is like Naraka. So this Katha kills the armies of the Asuras, which is like Naraka. And what is Naraka? Hell is other people. There's no hell going somewhere else. It is people who are pulling our energies in different gravities. Aaj ye karte hai, kal wo karte hai. Why people? It is our own mind which is hell. I want to do this, which is good, but no, I think I'll invest this by doing something else. So for all these warriors who are pulling our minds in different directions. She comes as Durga, the Katha, kills them, and then takes you into safe territory, just as she saved the sadhus and the gods. This is how the Katha is. Santa Samaja Payodhi Ramasi. For the great saints, she's like Rama for the ocean of saints. Now, this is also a very funny metaphor. Now, Rama is Lakshmi. Where did Lakshmi come from and what does she represent? Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth. Now, wealth comes in two forms, Sthāvar and Jangam. Sthāvar is your landed property. You know, you've got houses and plots and farms and whatnot. And Achala Sampatti or Jangam is movable property. Your shares, your investments, hard cash, jewelry, everything else. Something that can be easily taken from one place to another. So they say Lakshmi Chanchal hai. Your movable wealth, you know, she's very chanchal. She's here at one moment, tomorrow she's gone. We never know when our fortunes will turn and we'll fall into poverty or we'll become rich. As much as it is a function of effort, there is also an element of fate at play. So Lakshmi Chanchala hai. But Sthavar, jo Prithvi hai, she's always there. She doesn't move. But if you don't tend to it, if you don't husband it, you know, it will turn into some kind of jungle. So both Lakshmi and Kshama, Prithvi, need the grace of God to be able to shine through. So Lakshmi ki jo chanchalta hai, uske liye she's pressing the face of the feet of Vishnu. She is brought in that quietude only by the grace of divinity. So now, in that context, Rama is Lakshmi. But is she so subservient and docile? No. Where was Lakshmi born? Lakshmi was born in the ocean. The ocean is hence her father. And then she says, I'm going to marry Vishnu in the Swayamvar from the Samudra Manthan. We saw that. So Vishnu ji says, हाँ चलो, तो मेरे धाम चलो. She says, no, you stay here as a ghar jamai. You have to reside in the ocean. I'm not going to leave my house. It's too dear to me. It is a Ratnakar. It is a storehouse of wealth. I'm not going to leave this and come to you. God knows where you stay. You have to come and stay here if you want to marry me. And he does. Which is to say that for the sea of the Santa Samaj, she is like Rama, who says, I am not going to leave the ocean of the Santa Samaj. Hari ko aana hi aana padega. So, if the Katha is going in the Santa Samaj ocean, Lakshmi comes there and with Lakshmi comes Hari. The Katha is a door opener to the divine grace. Because Rama is not ready to leave the ocean of the Santa Samaj where the Katha is going, and Vishnu ji ko aana hi aana hai. Because she doesn't leave the ocean, right? She stays there and Vishnu ji then resides on that Shesh and is there on the ocean. So the boundaries of India are marked by these two. Shivji in the north in Kailasa and Vishnu in the ocean. So the map of India, as we've said multiple times, is the footprint of her pilgrims. So Santa Samaja Payodhi Ramasi, Visvabhara Bhara Achala Chamasi. So Lakshmi is movable property. Immovable property is the earth. You can't move it. So Kshama is the ability to forgive, which becomes Kshama. Who is the most forgiving? We trod on the earth day in and day out. Many people just spit, they bang their feet, they march, they torture, they drill. She can just shake a quake after another every moment and we'll be gone. She doesn't do that. She just takes all this and forgives. Kshama Sheel hai, Kshama Daini hai, Prithvi. So Biswa Bhara Bhara. So for all the torment of the world, she takes it, she absorbs it. She's like a shock absorber for all the torment of the world. What? The Katha, like Kshama. Kshama is another word for Prithvi. So the Katha is like the Kshama Shalini Prithvi that absorbs all the torment. So you can lash out at the Katha saying, Ye kya chal raha hai? I need to make money. She'll accept that because she knows that ultimately to take rest, you are not going to, pile up wealth in the middle of the sky and put your head on it. You have to lie down on Kshama. You could reside on the 100th floor or you could reside in a chopadi. You have to put your head down on the floor and she'll take you with the loving grace of a mother. The Katha, the Kshama. Kshama Shalini Prithvi will, in the form of the Katha, will take you. Even if you despise her, you say, I don't need her. She will be Kshama Shalini and give you rest when you go to her. So, Biswa Bhara Bhara Achala Kshamasi. Jamagana Muhamasi Jaga Jamunasi. So Jamuna, the river Yamuna, is dark in color. So he says that it is like ink. The Katha is like the ink comparable to the dark waters of the Yamuna that is going to be smeared on the Yamaganas. The Yamaganas are the ones who come to take you at the time of death. So if you have the fear of death, the Katha is going to act like the waters of the Yamuna, dark in color like ink, that is going to just say, oh Yamaganas, I'm splashing your faces with this ink. Go away. There is no death. The Katha is eternal and I reside in it, body or no body. So Jamagana Muhamasi Jagat Jamunasi, Jivana Mukuti Hetu Janukasi. And if you are desiring mukti through knowledge, the Katha is like Kasi for you, Kashi, Varanasi, which will give you mukti. Rama hi priya pavani tulasisi. So for Ramji, you can offer him tons of gold and diamonds and emeralds and rubies, but he'll take the little flower of the Katha Tulsi, the little leaf of the Katha Tulsi, and say, this one leaf is dear to me, nothing else. I need nothing else as an offering but my Katha. So the Katha for Sri Ram is so dear to him like the Tulsi plant is to him. So the Katha is Tulsi for Sri Ram. Tulsi, and what is the Katha for Tulsi? So you see the various layers in which he's doing the Gunagan of the Katha is this and the Katha is that. It is the Jamna, it is the Ganga, it is the snake, it is Kashi. But what is it for me, Goswami? Tulsi. He's saying Tulsi Dasa Hitahiya Pulasisi. So two meanings to this. One very straightforward. Tulsi Dasa Hitahiya Pulasisi. So for the Katha is there for the benefit of Tulsi Das, for gracing him, because Hiya is Hriday. Tulsi is Ullas, Anand. Tulsi Das ke Hriday mein Anand utpanna karne wali wo Katha hai. She takes care of him like Tulsi, the Ullas Anand. So the waves of happiness of the Katha arise in Tulsi Das's heart and all the torments are taken away. What is the second meaning of it? It is said that Tulsi was the mother of Tulsi. The name of Tulsi Das ji's mother was Tulsi. So Tulsi Das Hitahiya Hulasisi. So just like the mother protects the child from everything else, just like Tulsi Ma protected the heart of Tulsi, made it pious so that he is receptive to grace, Tulsi Das ke hit ke liye Tulsi ke pyar jaisi katha hai. So the katha basically is like a mother to Goswami ji. Remember, we had made this reference to the katha being like the mother. This is where Goswami ji admits that the katha is like my mother. So now, who was Tulsi? And a little anecdote on Tulsi before we move ahead. So Tulsi is the mother of Tulsi, Goswami ji, and I'll take you to the presentation again. Okay. So there is a, can you see? Yeah, okay. So if you go to Varanasi, in Varanasi there is a Manas Mandir. So there's a mandir. Many of you all might have visited this temple. The temple is a marble temple opened up in the 60s, and the entire Rāmacaritamānasa from Varnanam Artha Sanghanam to Vaha is carved on the walls of that temple. And on the first floor is a beautiful, marble idols of Ram, Sita, Lakshman, the Darbar. On the second floor, there's a diorama. The whole Ram Katha is told in dioramas, these 3D relief forms or models. And then on the top floor at the corner is this statue of Goswami ji. You see, this is Goswami. This image is when I was there at that temple, I clicked this. So, and on top is written a verse. I brought this up because Hulasi is mentioned over here. And we have that reference to Hulsi. So, Suratiya Naratiya Nagatiya Sabachahati Asahoe, Bodaliye Hulasi Phire, Tulasi So Sutohoe. Now, what is the context of this story? So, in Akbar's court, there was one great poet called Abdul Rahim Khan Khana, or whom we know as Rahim ji. Now, Rahim was, of course, wallowing in wealth, very rich, lot of money in the Darbar. And Goswami ji is saying, I'm not going to be attracted by all these trappings of power. I stay in my little chopri and write my Ram Katha. Now, a poor man came to Goswami ji and said, I'm standing in the face of poverty and my daughter is getting married and I need some money. So Goswami ji said, you've come to the wrong person. I can tell you the katha. These worries are not mine, but I see your problem and I know of a person who can help you. So he writes the first line, Goswami ji, Suratiya, the wife of the gods, Naratiya, the wives of mortal beings, or the ladies of mortal, not necessarily wives, he is three. So the woman of the mortal world, the woman of the heavenly realms, and Nagatiya, the woman of the nether world, Sabachahati Asahoy, all of them need something. He writes only this because he knows that Rahim is going to understand what he means. And he says, ye Rahim ji ke paas leke jaiye. And that fellow then goes to, who has come asking for money to Goswami ji, goes to Rahim and shows him this. And Rahim reads it and says, Acha, Suratiya, Naratiya, Nagatiya, Sabachahati Asahoy. All women, whether they be rich, poor, what do they want? They want their daughters married off well. The only thing that worries them is, are my children going to be married off? And for that, you need money. So he understands the subtext because he sees this poor man, says, Goswami ji ne aapko ye bheja. It doesn't make sense unless he puts everything together. And he gives him a lot of money. He says, sab ho jayega. And then he says, Goswami ji ke paas jaiye aur ye unko likh bhejiye. And then he completes that set by saying, what do all these three women want? Godaliye hulsi phire tulsi so sut hoye. All these three women, be it of the heavenly world, the earthly world, or the nether world, they want a child like Tulsi Das, and Tulsi is moving with the baby in her arms, saying, I am greater than heavenly apsaras or heavenly devis, beautiful and rich woman on the face of this earth, or woman in the nether world, because I have a child like Tulsi. So he completes this and sends it back to Goswami ji saying, Godaliye hulsi phire tulsi so sut hoye. That's the story. So the first was written by Goswami ji, and the second was completed and sent back by Rahim to him. There's another story. So Goswami ji then, seeing this great Dana Virata of Rahim ji, says, Aisi deni den ju kit sikhe ho sen, jo jo kar uncho karo tyo tyo niche nain. So Rahim ji, I have seen that whenever you are donating things, you raise your hands to let that donation flow. But when you raise your hands to do that, your eyes are bowing down. Why do you do that? And then Rahim ji responds back saying, Denakar koi aur hai, denahar koi aur hai. The giver is someone else. I am just the transmitting line. It's not my wealth. Denahar koi aur hai, bheje to jo din rain. Who's sending this day in and day out? Compassion is showering day in and day out. There is no end to it. People mistake that I am the giver. I'm so ashamed and embarrassed. Loga bharam hum par kare, that I am the giver. Taso niche nain. Isiliye main nain jhuka ke daan deta hu. So this is the friendship between Rahim and Goswami ji. Of course, the question of the historicity of this comes up. Did such a correspondence ever happen? Do we have any documented evidence for it? No. But this is kultur gut. It is our cultural knowledge that has come. And these stories are told generations over and again. And as I said, you see this also in the Manas Mandir. And Hulsi is said to be the mother of Goswami ji. Again, we don't have any very concrete historical secondary literature that confirms with 100% certainty that this was the name. But more or less, it is accepted that Hulsi was the mother of Tulsi. So this is probably the only little biographical reference that Goswami ji is giving, saying my mom was Tulsi and she protected me. But again, you could just take it to be a wave of joy, that the katha is like a wave of joy. Hulsi is Allah's ullas. So it is like a wave of joy to my heart and protects. Okay, so this little diversion on Hulsi. Yeah, Apan, I think you put some comments saying we all should visit the Manas Mandir together. Yeah, maybe by Ramji's grace, this will happen. And then he goes on to say that Sivapriya Mekala Saila Sutasi. Who's Mekal Suta now? Narmada, the origin of the Narmada is said to be around Amarkantak in central India. And she is the daughter of the mountains. And Sivapriya Mekala Saila Sutasi. So Shivji ke liye jaise Narmada ji hai. So the Narmada river is very dear to Shiva. तो पूछेंगे कि भाई गंगा जी को सिर पे धारण करते हैं, but that's his wife. It is said that the Narmada is like his daughter, and he loves his daughter so much that he's not ready to leave her, and he keeps existing in her waters through those rounded shivlings. If you go to the banks of the Narmada, you have these rounded stones that are perfect shivlings that are crafted by the workings of nature. So, again, the waters of the Katha have lashed at the arrogance of the stones. And what have they transformed the stone to? Into a shivling. So Shivji resides eternally in the Narmada river because she is so dear to him like a daughter. So the Katha is to Shivji very dear to him like a daughter because it was produced in the water heart of him. We saw that at the beginning. So Sivapriya Mekala Saila Sutasi Sakala Siddhi Sukha Sampati Rasi. It is a storehouse of all wealth and all gems and all anything that you want. It is a storehouse for that. You ask for it and the Katha provides. Sadaguna Suragana Amba Aditisi Raghubara Bhagati Prema Paramitisi. I'll unfold this, but I think Preeti wants to add something. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that when you're speaking about the Narmada, they say that if you take you're right, the stones are like shivlings, and actually have one. They say that it doesn't need to be sanctified.
Yes.
Just a shivling, a stone as a shivling, and put it straight into your puja, it's already energized and powered.
Very true. The shivlings from the Narmada can be worshipped without any grand installation procedures because they are empowered. It is Shivji himself. जैसे काशी के कण में शिवजी है, वैसे नर्मदा जी के पत्थर में शिवलिंग है. So he never refuses to, let himself go from the waters. He resides like the shivling. So the Katha is like the Narmada river to Shivji. Sivapriya Mekala Saila Sutasi Sakala Siddhi Sukha Sampati Rasi. She's a storehouse of all wealth and all desires. Sadaguna Suragana Amba Aditisi. Now, you might know that the gods and the demons come from the same biological parentage, Diti and Aditi. The same father but two mothers. So Amba is mother. So the Katha is like Mother Aditi to the gods. Who are the gods? The gods are Sadguns. So if we have our Chittavritti matrix, our entire emotional matrix mapping has good and bad both emotions. The bad emotions are Diti, the demons. The good emotions, the Satguns, are the gods. And the Katha is the birth giver, like the mother Aditi, to the gods of the Satgunas. So the Katha acts like a birth giver of Sadgunas. It slowly starts transforming you. And the Sadgunas start, the Sattvikata, the Sattva Gunas, they start shining forth if you start swimming in the waters of the Katha. So Sadaguna Suraguna Amba Aditisi Raghubara Bhagati Prema Parimitisi. And if you want to know what is the ultimate limit for the love of Ram, it is the Katha. So the Katha acts like that infinite limit for the love of Ram. Raghubara Bhagati Prema Parimitisi. And then finally he puts the capstone on the Rāmakatha temple by saying that the Ram Katha is like the Mandakini river. Where does the Mandakini flow? In Chitrakoot. Chitrakoota Chitachar. So when Ramji went into Vanvas, it is said that his stay in the Chitrakoot region, on the Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh boundary, the Chitrakoot region, they spent some of their most intimate, quiet, peaceful, and very happy moment, Ram, Lakshman, and Sita, at Chitrakoot, because all this Ravana coming, etc., happened then when they moved around down south. But in Chitrakoot, it was a very, very peaceful, quiet place where they had a very happy life. So Chitrakoot is a very fond place of Sri Ram. So our Chit, by listening to the Katha, becomes like Chitrakoot, because the Katha Mandakini flows through it. And at Chitrakoot, the Mandakini river itself is like a bow. So she keeps wards off everything. It takes this U-turn, it's like a bow. And so if our mind is like the Chitrakoot, the Katha is like the Mandakini river. And Tulsidas says, Subagha Saneha Bana, in the forest around this Chitrakoot, that forest is what it is like, the love that we have for Sri Ram. So if we turn our minds into Chitrakoot, and if we let the Katha Mandakini flow through our mind, and we have in our mind the forest of love, Siyara Ghubira Biharu, then in that forest, you have no choice but to have Sita and Ram foresting around, because that is their place of happiness. So this is the power of the Katha. Any questions? Yeah. Yes, Ajay.
So again, maybe my imagination, but just before before you started this section, you showed us the cover where Sharanagati is where Tulsidas is. So that it almost seems like bookends. He starts with that, and the very next thing he says is, "I have heard it 12 times and reflected 108 times." It's almost as if that's how he's telling us that, look, the same water has washed me
Yeah.
and my rough edges, right? And then the other bookend is and then therefore the intellectual can rest there and it's for everyone and so on. And then the other bookend is about the whole Hulasi piece and that Rahim whatever. So just, I think, just to share that. And also when you spoke about this Chitrakoot, I used to have a teacher some, I don't know, 50 years ago, and he had actually, so my Bengali is pathetic, but it just came back after all these years. He had actually written 4 lines where Sita is telling Ram, when they've gone back to all that fanfare and they are back in Ayodhya, saying, and if there's any Bengali, so pardon me, Cholo Ram phire jaye, cholo oi nodi tir, e Rajpurir che chilo je onek bhalo, Jepatar Chotto Kutir, something like that. I
saw built that little hut. Let's go back to that Chitrakoot.
Yeah. I just recollected, so whatever it may be. But
in fact, when they are flying back, and when they see, so there's like a Sinhavalokan done in the Katha itself. When they go back after defeating Ravana, they see all the spots that they've gone through, and then they say, "Oh, this is Chitrakoot, the place where we spent our time so beautifully." Yeah. Also, in
the 14 years, they spent maximum years there. I think that's
and it was a paradise for them.
Yeah.
It's not like Vanvas was painful all the while. Chitrakoot was they were away from the palace, they were away from the crowds, they were surrounded by people.
Saints,
sadhu. It was a very beautiful time for them. In fact, the Aranyakand has so many beautiful stories of all these encounters with sadhus. They stay in Chitrakoot, and in the Geet Ramayana, in fact, Ram commands Lakshman, "Ya ithe Lakshmana bandha kuti, ya mandakini cha tatanikati." Build a hut, says Ram to Lakshman, on the banks of the Mandakini river, because this place is so beautiful. Even Ram is enchanted by it. So the Katha is like the Mandakini river if we turn our minds into that Chitrakoot, and the love forest. If all this is there, Ram has to come, because this is a dear place for him. He will come. There is no doubt about it.
You know what was reminded? You mentioned earlier also about the river and how the gentleness flow of the river can cut mountains. I was reminded of Gnaneshwari Gita. I think there is something there which is pretty much the same, where he talks about how the truth actually breaks through the mountain. I can't remember Marathi now anymore, but there is some reference to that also. I just thought maybe you might know of it.
Yeah, I remember reading that reference, but I don't recall the verbatim OV. But I think he also talks of, in another place, that a lotus petal can cut a diamond if it is carrying the message.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Achha.
Because it is saying that harshness cannot be killed with harshness. You have to be soft so much. So like the waters, carving of a stone. A stone will not do the same thing as a water would do to a stone. So a very beautiful passage of what all the Katha can be, the potentiality of the Katha. So he begins with the multiple tellings of the Katha, that the Katha is told by these 4 narrators. Then he talks of the potency of the Katha, that the Katha is so much to so many in so many different ways. But for Tulsi, it is the joy of the heart. And for all of us, it is like the Chitrakoot forest, where Ram and Sita have no option to come. Which is why the Katha will give access to Ram. The Naam will give access to Ram. If you just worship Ram, probably you'll not reach him. But if you go through Naam and Katha, and Roop and Leela and Naam, the access is very easy. And you can be on any one of these 4 banks. Now the next block is going to talk of his charit, of his character. And what is the difference between a charit and Katha? The charit is as it happened and echoed in 100% correspondence by these 3 greats, Yajnavalkya Bharadwaj, Kak Bhushundi Garud, and Shivji and Parvatiji. The Katha is this multiplication of it. So he talked about the beauties of the Katha. Now he'll talk about the greatness of the Charit. But again, it's a big passage, so we can't I don't want to break it. We have to do that in one go. So we'll do that for next time. We can now, what I'll do is I'll conclude the session with the closing prayer. We'll stop the recording and then we can go into a free-flowing discussion. Yatra yatra Raghunath Kirtanam Tatra Tatra Krutamastakāñjalim Bāshpavari Paripurnalocanam Marutim Namatarakshasatakam. I'm stopping the recording now.